wish us everything of the best. So today we are here on Women's Day, and Women's Day is a national celebration because today in 1956, mothers, aunts, the women of this country. Can I just ask that people please put off their mics in the interim? Okay, so while the speakers are speaking, can I just request that all participants mute themselves? And when you want to pose a question, we can put your hand up and then you can unmute. So let us quickly go back to why we are celebrating today. Today in 1956, the mothers, the aunts, the grandmothers, those women who went before us, marched to the union buildings. They went there in protest. They protest against what was the structured separation of people, and they protested specifically against the Population Registration Act, which required people who were not white to carry a passbook. And so, as part of the movement, it was part of the movement that created what we have today. It set the tone for our democracy today. These were the actions that were initiated by the mothers, the aunts, the grandmothers. They went before us and created or set the foundations in place to create the democracy that we are benefiting from today. And as part of our learning, as part of our roots, as part of our history, we pay homage to them. We recognize them today. We recognize them in future, and we pay tribute. We say thank you. We also need to recognize that women encounter struggles every single day. We recognize the contributions that women make in art, in history, in society. We recognize the sheroes that live amongst us, that pave the way for us to do and to get the benefits of being part of a community and of the society that we live in. Often it is the mothers and the women who keep the family together. It is the women who nurture and guide. It is the women who build and rebuild. And it's the women who find the solutions in times of struggle, and creating opportunity. So today, as part of our intergenerational conversation, we have two amazing women who are joining us, and we have two young people who are joining us as well. And essentially the manner in which our program will be structured today is I will be introducing Lucia, and then I will be introducing Christina, and each of them will have the opportunity to do their presentations and discussions. If you have questions specifically for Lucia, who I will introduce in a moment, I would advise you to use the chat. So if you will see at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box, and you can pose your questions in the chat. Wandile is going to put together the questions afterwards, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end after both presenters and the poets have spoken. Okay, so without further ado, I think that there's also the opportunity for you to, if you want to have a speaker view, you can select on your computer, and then the person who is busy speaking will be in the center of your computer. And then also, if you want to have a tiled view, then you can see everybody. I must, however, request, as part of our documentary, as part of our documenting evidence, I usually take a photograph. So if I could, or a screenshot of the Zoom meeting room. So if I just could briefly request that everybody take their cameras, put their cameras on, so that I can take a video of everybody, or so that I can take a screenshot of everybody present? If you could just give me 2 seconds. And I think it's important that we do that at the beginning to ensure that everybody that's here are in actual fact included. Fadila, are you able to
should we smile or laugh?
if you are most welcome to smile, and please either look straight ahead at your camera. Yes, good afternoon. I see there's one more person connecting.
There we go.
Yay. And in 3, 2, 1, smile. And I have it. There we go.
Guys, thank you.
We live in very interesting times. It is absolutely amazing that we are able to meet and see and communicate with each other in this way during this very turbulent time. It's absolutely, technology makes wonderful things possible. Without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Lucia Ochan Similani. She's a businesswoman, the owner of OT Deo Medical Aesthetic Clinic, and a skincare professionalist. She is also a Mrs. South Africa Globe 2019 and Mrs. Globe alumni. She's the Foundation Africa spokesperson. She participates in numerous councils and chambers within South Africa, and her advocacy involves gender equality, women empowerment in marginalized communities, and by restoring dignity to humanity and promoting positive, sustainable environmental impacts that creates jobs and opportunities for rural women and their families. So without further ado, Lucia, welcome to Iziko Museums of South Africa. The floor is yours.
Greetings, South Africa, and greetings to the women of South Africa. First of all, I would like to say Happy Women's Day, and thank you, Iziko Museum South Africa, for having me. Today, as we honor the heroines and as a young woman in South Africa that plays a role in business and making sure that empowerment does take place. My topic for today, it has to do with the role of women in society and also women financial and economic inclusion. Women have played a significant role in society and their involvement in society for a very long time. And history does show that women has been in the marketplace for a very, very long time, and they have traded as well, not only in their own communities, but outside their communities. But what we see today is that women are not given the platform to play their role, and they still struggle, to be emancipated, and they still struggle to get financial help. Under this umbrella that we are discussing today, women entrepreneurs in Africa, they don't have much access. They still struggle. We still face a lot of gender discrimination. And also growth, growth barriers. We still have growth barriers because we can't grow further because markets close us down. We don't have opportunities. We don't have access to finance. We depend much on government as much as we're supposed to be depending much on ourselves. It will take women in Africa and women in South Africa. It will take them, to step up. It will take them to step up, sorry. It will take them to step up and to step up to play the role by working together, by collaborating. because collaborating efforts are very important. The problem that we have as women as well is that we don't collaborate that much. We want to work in silos. We don't want to partner. We don't want to work together. It becomes a serious, serious, serious problem if we do not collaborate. And Indigenous women suffer more because culture and religion comes in place. What we call for more women's support. We call for women to take up space. We call for women to start working together for greater livelihoods. And then firstly, what we lack as women in Africa, it's skills. Skills development is a challenge. Skills development is a challenge in rural areas. Skill development is a challenge within young women. What we seek is that if we can be empowered within the sectors that we are in, and we are empowered within the sectors that are there. Women's networks, they play a huge role within women. If women could step up and start being part of women's networks, that will empower them so that they can be greater business women and greater entrepreneurs. Products. We speak of products. We have so many products that we have that as women that we can do, but because of access to markets, it's not easy to sell those products. It's not easy to put those products in markets. And then finding ways, we have to find ways of seeing how we can put those products in markets. We would like to encourage women entrepreneurs to take up space, to get involved, not to sit at home and wait for governments to lend a lending hand. But as women of today and young women today, the world is very competitive. Today we struggle with the pandemic that we are facing today. And we have to find ways of coping. We have to find ways how we can change things. We have to find ways and solutions of coming in, seeing that how can we come with new ideas that will help us shape our businesses. As a young woman in South Africa, for me, I had to start my own business, of which I started at the age of 26. I started with a hair salon. I didn't have much support for me to start that hair salon. I had to reinvest back to that business. How did I reinvest in that business? I resigned from the work that I was working in and invested back. Up until today, I'm still working to build the same business that I have started. Because financial institutions, they close us down. They don't open much for young women. They don't open much for women. Women must have collateral for them to access finance, of which is something that we still lack. Rural women, they lack that. Rural women, they lack skills. Rural women, they lack so many opportunities that urban women do get. We need to have that balance. And the only balance that can be brought, it can be brought about by us women standing together and working together. Because if we are not standing together and supporting each other, it means that we are not stronger. The women of 1956, they stood together. They marched to the union buildings for one thing, which was pass laws that were stopping Africans or South Africans to move or Africans to be free. But what are we lacking today? We are lacking economic freedom. We are lacking economic finance. This is what women are suffering for. If women are not emancipated from these social ills and economy, we will forever be abused. We will forever suffer from gender-based violence because we will stay in relationships that do not favor us because we do not have finance. The role that is being played by women in society and leadership. For centuries, women have been builders. They have been the ones that bring food in their homes. They've been trading. Most women in rural areas, they've been trading by selling vegetables to bring up their own families. to make sure that their children do go to school, to make sure that there's food in the table. So since if women have been trading so far, what stopped women today to play their role in big markets? What stopped women today to play their role by trading outside their own countries and outside their communities? What we plead as women is that the support that we need, because we cannot have a minority of women in leadership position while we have people that will make decisions on our behalf. We will want to be part of that and be given that opportunity as women of South Africa, women of the continent, a role to play in the trade of Africa. My closure will be, as women, let's stand together, let's stand stronger, because we are stronger together. But if we are not standing together, we are weaker. We won't be able to achieve what we like to achieve as women. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lucia. For those of you who have questions that you would like to pose to Lucia, you're welcome to pose it into the chat. And just in summary, what I had heard her speak about is about, as a woman from Africa, we need to take up space. We need to start expanding our networks. We need to stop working in silos and collaborate and support each other in attaining that economic freedom and taking those steps towards financially emancipating ourselves. One of the things that I've heard her speak about also is that women are resilient. We will find solutions in our communities in order to provide for ourselves and our families. Thank you so much for your quick talk, Lucia. And I'm going to allow people to pose their questions in the chat while we move on to the presentation by Christina Nomdo, whom I'm going to introduce right now. So our next speaker is, technology. Allow me to introduce to you Ms. Christina Nomdo, the Children's Commissioner of the Western Cape, and she has served as the Child Rights Specialist Commissioner on the National Planning Commission for the last 4 years. During this time, she has conducted a child participation initiative to get feedback directly from young people about how the National Development Plan should be reviewed and to include the perspectives of children. Ms. Nomdo works with the government and civil society partners in the youth sector to create awareness and to create participation with young people across all the 9 provinces. Also joining us today as part of our conversation, she has included Chelsea Botha from Elsie's, a grade 12 learner from Elsie's River High School, who is also the chairperson of the RCL. And she also joining us is Lucanio Soyamba, who is 17, and he is from Rhodes High School, and he is the deputy chairperson of the RCL. And both of these young persons, and I think also Ambrose Phillips, am I correct, is also joining us as part of the young people who are with the Commissioner's Office. So without further ado, welcome Christina, and thank you to all of you joining us today.
Thank you, everybody, for that warm welcome. Mrs. Klainsmith, Iziko Museums. I really appreciate the platform on Women's Day to talk about intergenerational dialogues. And as you can see, I put things in practice. So part of my presentation panel are 3 young people working with me right now. I'll talk more with them a little bit later in the presentation. So I just want to frame the presentation in relation to my mandate as the Western Cape Children's Commissioner. I was appointed as the first ever in South Africa Children's Commissioner. It's a historical appointment in the country because we've never had an office that is specifically set aside to hold government to account to realize children's rights. Such offices exist in northern countries. In Europe, for example, there are over 35 children's commissioners. They form a block of children's commissioners who sometimes talk with each other about children's rights issues. I'm a bit lonely here in South Africa, and but I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to break new ground, to set frontiers around what we can achieve in a South African context around accountability for children's rights. So if I just frame children's rights for you, we always talk about the 3 Ps of children's rights: protection rights, provision rights, and participation rights. And I dare say we are very comfortable with children's provisioning rights. We all agree children need love and shelter and healthcare and education to achieve their optimal potential. We also can agree that children should be free from harm. So the right to protection is to protect them from all sources of harm, be that emotional harm, sexual abuse, exploitative labor, for example. So there's sort of agreement in society around these 2 rights. Although if I wanted to be contentious, I would show you that there are even fault lines in the protection and the provision rights. But we won't go there now. We'll keep that for a next occasion. I will talk with you particularly about children's participation rights. And I think that people usually ask, what should children participate in? Which children? Why? How should children be participating in our society? So I, am particularly interested in their participation in governance. So the conversation between government and citizens, that is what I frame as governance. And it may surprise you, but children are also human beings. They are also global citizens. And so they also should be part of that governance debate. But we find that very hard to do. I'm not sure why. I find it quite easy to talk with children myself, but others find it quite difficult. I think that there are some barriers in our hearts and our minds, actually, around our communication with children as part of society. And so when I say barriers in hearts and minds, some people, we assume incapability where children are concerned. We assume they don't know what they're talking about. How can they have views and opinions? They've only lived short lives. What can they teach us, And I confirm always with the children with whom I work that they are experts where none of us can claim to be experts. They are experts at being children. None of us can claim to be experts at being children anymore. I'm slightly too old to claim to be part of childhood, but only slightly, mind you. So I think that we must give them their due. We must acknowledge their contribution to society in telling us what the lived realities of children are like. I can't claim to be speaking on behalf of children, and I will never do that. I always say to people in every platform that I work with is, don't call me the voice of children. I cannot be the voice of children. Children have their own voice, and they should be allowed to articulate that voice in any way that they find is appropriate. Today, some of them will share with me, and the 3 who joined me today, Lucanio, Ambrose, and Chelsea, are all 3 poets. And so I've only asked them very recently to give me a poem. In actual fact, within the last 24 hours, I said, give me a poem. And some of them got into the zone, but Ambrose is very good at talking off the cuff as well. So I'm sure he will not lack the ability to speak to us about his views and thoughts. Kyk hoe lag hy nou, hy weet waarvan ek praat. He knows what I'm talking about. He's a talker, that one. So they will share with you a little bit later the experience of working with me. But first, let me perhaps take you on the journey that I took in the children's NDP project. And I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try to show you a publication. So it comes like as a mirror image. But that is a publication that you will find on the National Planning Commission's website. There are 2 reports at the moment that capture the process of where I led some commissioners and the Secretariat of the National Planning Commission on a 9-province tour to talk with children in the remotest areas. Sometimes government couldn't even find a place on their database for us to stay at because it was areas that government has never been to before. So we went to converse with children there around participation in governance in relation to the National Development Plan. Now, you may know that there's a 2030 National Development Plan, and as part of this iteration of the National Planning Commission, the 2nd iteration, we were asked by the President to review that plan for relevance. And so, of course, I was appointed as a child rights specialist on that commission. And my mandate was, of course, to talk with children. But, you know, even the National Planning Commission found this kind of stakeholder engagement to be quite novel. They had never spoken to children before directly in the places where children live, not in meeting rooms, not in boardrooms, not with boring agendas, but playing games with children where they live. Having them do role plays about their realities, asking them to do posters about how they would like to see the future of South Africa. And you will see all that work written up in those 2 reports that are on the National Planning Commission website. The Planning Commission wraps up its work, the 2nd Planning Commission wraps up its work now in September 2020. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay on with them. I had to end my term with the National Planning Commission at the end of May, because on the 1st of June, I became the Western Cape Commissioner for Children. And the law that brings my office into being precludes me from holding 2 offices at the same time. So I said a sad goodbye to my colleagues at the National Planning Commission. I still love them a lot and I still have conversations with them. But I needed to do a new set of work. And so my new office is really, simply put, to be a watchdog over 4 departments: the Department of Education, the Department of Health, the Department of Social Development, and the department within which you are orientated, DCAS, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport. So libraries and museums also fall within my mandate of oversight. It may interest you that in fact I have a formal qualification in library and information sciences, in which I actually did study a little bit about museums and archives and mostly libraries. So I'm very familiar with your terrain, and I look forward to being invited to some of your spaces when we are eventually out of this lockdown. We are gehok, and so we are waiting for the president to set us free. It seems that we may be, you know, reaching some progress in terms of the COVID pandemic, and we are all hoping and praying for the best for our nation, and we are sharing our condolences with those who have lost loved ones during this time. Be safe, stay home, be careful of your own health and so the health of other people during the sad time. But so I also take office in Corona times, and that means that in actual fact, I've only physically met Ambrose Phillips because he was part of a project at Excelsior High that we had initiated there before my time even as the Commissioner of the Western Cape. So I have not physically met Lucanio and Chelsea, yet we are, I think, quite bonded to each other. There's quite a feeling of camaraderie already amongst us. So what I did in the Western Cape Office of the Commissioner for Children is I brought that specialist talent with me in relation to child participation in governance. And I said, there's no way that I'm going to be commissioner without working in cooperation with children from day one. So I think Chelsea is one of those kids who joined me on the 1st of June as an advisor to the Commissioner for Children. I spoke with her parents before the time in May already, and she'll tell you how I got to know her. And I invited her to join me as part of my child government monitors group. So this group of children will share with me their lived realities and also the service orientation of government. How do they experience the services from education, social development, health, Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport? So they will speak into my advising and recommending to government clear action plans of how we can realize children's rights. So they help me with my monitoring role, my advisory role, and my recommendations role. I also have the power and duty to investigate government departments or even institutions that work with children to make sure that no rights of children are being violated. I have the responsibility to also, like I'm doing now, enter into discussions with the general public to tell them more about children's rights. So I have an education and information function. I have also a function to lobby key government officials and also parliament and local councils. So I report directly to the parliament. I am not part of the Western Cape government. I am an independent statutory body that is in oversight of the Western Cape government. Those institutions that you may know, other Chapter 9 institutions are institutions like the Public Protector, the South African Human Rights Commission, the Auditor General. So my office works similar to that. In the Western Cape, we also have a police ombudsman who works in a similar fashion. And so I thought that we really need to hit the ground running with my office. We can't still take time to orientate. I've been doing children's rights work for the last 30 years. So there's nothing to orientate as far as I'm concerned. I'm just looking for towards this platform to create a better positioning of children in our society, a reimagining of childhoods in our society, and also a focus on children's voice, not only meaning, you know, the way they talk, but giving power to their voice, giving power to their views, making sure their views land with the decision makers, and also tracking how their views can change policy, law, and practice in South Africa for children. So I'm very excited to assume this role, and I love having discussions with these child government monitors. They will tell you almost daily, we chat and we have great fun. So I'm going to actually ask each of them to give you some insight into how they became involved in my office and what we do. But I'm going to ask them to kick off with the two poems that Lucanio and Chelsea has written for us. So Lucanio, let's hear from you. What do you think about the Children's Commissioner? Tell us honestly.
Hi everyone, as I was introduced, my name is Lucanio Sunyamba, and yeah, well, the Children's Commissioner, as I said, I'll kick off with a poem. So this is what I've written is, I behold the beginning, I behold the new, the first. At first, my mind wasn't pleased who this person is, upon age I speak. Hasn't the world full of the naive and stubborn-minded? Yet growth intervened, and I saw this is a childlike being, listening and understanding like to children like me, working in relation like partners, working a dream. guiding but letting us lead. Government systems, children's rights, policies at work seemingly seemed perfect, but needs work. Now I see. Walls fallen, now I see. Working with this childlike being is like letting my voice sing, feeling like the world gives an ear to me. Well, it does at this point, as you can see. Children are we, and the commissioner is a mic, so you can hear us speak. Well, that from just briefly, I'll try to explain it so don't get confused. I said it as I in the first stanza, it says, I behold in the beginning. So she's the first child commissioner. So I'm putting that up there. And first on my mind, usually me, I'm a person who's like wants youth empowerment, right? I want people who are young, well, leaders in power at this age because we have lacking also in some of that. That's why I said upon age I speak, you know. Usually people who are all like adults, let me put it that way, adults are usually stubborn, don't like to listen to children, like they always have this fixed mindset that's open to other possibilities. So I just wanted to also say that. And then I started to know her where growth intervened and saw that she was actually opening a platform for us to point our opinions and say our views at that point. Yeah, that's basically, and the last line, which the rest also speaks, says guiding but letting us lead. Like she's like not in front, but besides us through this journey. I know in that way it's like, okay, come follow me, but saying, this is the road. What do you think? Should we take it or something like that? You know, creating that open space, the child-friendly zone, and that I've noticed. And one of my line I described her as a childlike being, because you know, in a sense, when you grow up and some adults actually lose the ability to be childlike, where they're always like, okay, I'm an adult now, I'm formal, no. You should address me as this. It's just when we met, I think it was when I think in the group, yes, she came in part of the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, parliamentarian. She came with the group and said wanted to invite us. Only if you want, you can join on this project, government monitoring. And then we all called her ma'am and stuff like that, like giving her respect, as you know, by culture. But you know, she immediately corrected us upon that, saying that we should be free and call her by name because you know respect is earned; it should not be given. And also creating that platform for free speaking, because when you make things formal, it's very hard to speak your views because now you don't want to, you know, trying to sugarcoat things at that point. Yeah, and the last stanza, children are we, and the commission is a mic, so you can hear us speak, which clearly says that in other words, she's an instrument enabling us to speak, letting us speak. As I said, as you can see that I'm speaking right now, able to face my views upon this day. I'm really grateful, and that's basically it. But that's also my views at this point. I want also Chelsea, you know, give Chelsea also some time to speak. I don't want to take all the time. Yeah. So yeah, that's my
Thanks, Dr. Lux. Over to
Thank
Chelsea.
you, Luca. Yeah.
Well, good day, everybody, and happy Women's Day to all the women out there. So I am Chelsea Botha, as previously introduced, and my poem is titled "Things Can Change." When will they listen? When will our voices be heard? Who is even interested? Well, she is, and they are. Our very own Children's Commissioner. Basically, our superwoman. She has changed things. She takes time to hear us out and tells us things we should know about. She has provided a platform for us to speak to one another and learn from each other. A group of government monitors, who would have thought? A group of children eager to be taught. A group of children sharing ideas and opinions, whether long or short, with our commissioner in the midst of discussion, giving guidance where needed. I now know things can change because as children we are more out there now and more confident about being the future leaders of this very country. So basically, my poem, it's very self explanatory, and it says that things can change. At first it was whenever I did something with the arts or whenever I ever did something on my own, I would always say things are worth a try, whether we all know that it used to be where it's a 90% chance that no one will hear or see what we have to do or present, but and a 10% chance of it happening or our views being taken into consideration. But now things has changed where the Children's Commission has come and turned the numbers around, perhaps where it's now 80% of the time our views and opinions are heard and taken into consideration, and a 20% chance that it is heard but might not necessarily be used. So yeah, like I said, it's very self-explanatory, and I also mentioned the government monitors because that is not just a group where people say things for the sake of saying what they want. It's a group where people raise their opinions, and it's very good opinions based, especially when the grown-ups are like, okay, they're children, they might not know, like Christina said, what they're talking about, but yes, we're children, but we do know what we're talking about, especially and we have a passion for a lot of things we do. So yeah, that was just my poem, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks. Melody, if you just would allow me to let Ambrose just say a few words about how we work on WhatsApp every Friday night with each other. So just to give you an insight of the training program. And
Okay,
then we
that's
will
not a
end,
problem. Thank you.
over to
Ambrose,
you,
we
Mr.
listen to you.
Williams.
Good afternoon to our Children's Commissioner, Christina Nomdo, and to Melody Kleinsmith. It's really a privilege to be in the Zoom meeting and to can be a part of this. So on a Friday night, let me start from the beginning. So Christina, like she said, she came to Excelsior and she actually came with a literature project. So that is where I spoke most of the time. That's where I voiced my opinions about the novel we're doing with Barbara Boswell. Grace a novel. So that's like where most of my that opinions came out because like Chelsea said, we are not allowed to speak up. We are not allowed to voice our opinions, especially in the colored society, because mothers is like, say jai for me, who can jai for me say? So it's like we are cultured and traditioned in that way of keeping our opinions to ourselves. So that's actually where this thing started. And then she started the commissioning project, the child monitors project, and that's just where it all kicked off. On a on Friday nights, we started with the first session. We talked about who are we, what is our name, what is the meaning of our name, where does it come from, and from that things just gradually started to flow into our culture, our tradition, our society, and just learning from each other's cultures, because we are, like I said, we are cultured in this mindset of not speaking, not voicing our opinions, not speaking out of our traditions, because not many times in conversations do people say, oh, in our culture we believe in this, oh, in our culture do we believe in that. And I think that is mostly how our parents have taught us. So teen has really allowed us to open our voices to voice our opinions and just share with each other. We are learning a lot about government budgets. We are learning a lot about the current situation we are in, the coronavirus, and how the rights of children are being neglected and are not actually being taken serious. Like Malika Sewell in Elsie's River, I actually wrote a letter to the president voicing her opinions, and that was like the breaking of the ice for throughout the Western Cape, because who would actually write a letter to the president and share that boldness, share that guts to actually speak out about what she's facing. And on Friday nights, I'm telling you, we are learning, and we are actually not just speaking out of what we want to. We are actually speaking facts along with opinions. So Tina is actually equipping us on that, because sometimes my syllables and my pronouns are so mixed up, and then it's most of or some, and Tina's really helping us to be opinionated and factuated speakers and child government monitors. And on this women's, I'd like to commend the Iziko museums for honoring a lot of our freedom fighters like Winnie Madikizela, Francis Bart, and all these wonderful freedom fighters. And I believe that going forward, we should really honor and acknowledge the ordinary women and girls in South Africa, the ordinary voices and opinions and circumstances in South Africa. I listened to a podcast on TED of Ariana Curtis, a museum curator, where she said that why don't we honor the ordinary, the people that is around us, and not just people like Whitney Houston or these pop stars that are honored in museums. Let's embrace the women in our society. Let's embrace their thoughts. Let's acknowledge and take their voices seriously, because how else will we change? How else will we move forward? And how else will women be empowered, like we said previously? So thank you, thank you, thank you for this opportunity.
As you can see, they are not short of thoughts, opinions, views. They are factuated. I love that. Thank you for providing the platform to all of us to talk along with you this afternoon. We look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lucia. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Ambrose. Thank you, Lucanio and Chelsea. I think that it is very heartening to see the young men form part of this conversation as well. And I just had a couple of insights here as we were talking as an intergenerational conversation. I think there's a little Peter Pan in all of us who would, some women like to seek the fountain of youth and be forever young. And then there's that moment that you have to recognize that you are not so young anymore, as Christina had said, but just a little bit. We're just on the other side of the arcade. And it's really an inspiring moment to hear just how much you young people, and I don't want to say you young people because I'm also a young person, just how you feel about our society. And I was thinking, as we commemorate our past, and Ambrose so aptly mentioned the women activists who went before us, and yes, in addition to all the Winnie Mandelas that there are in, and all the high-profile activists who created our democracy or worked towards our democracy, they're also the grandmothers. They're also the aunts, the neighbors, the family friends, the sheroes who live amongst us, who allow us to grow and to become the woman and gentleman of today's society. And as we commemorate our past and how our past has shaped our present, because it has created who we are today, we also need to recognize those women and how, and these women who have joined us here today, and how we in our lives today are preparing for tomorrow, and particularly for future generations. I think that you have inspired us, and we feel a little bit more confident about the future of our country and our neighborhoods if they are in the hands of young people like you. And I think it is also important that we continue the conversation. So if each of us can continue the conversation with just one more, two more, three more people, and so we will continue, as Lucia said, expand our networks, collaborate, participate, and ensure that we share our messages. So I would like to provide the opportunity to anybody, if you would like to make a comment, if you would like to share an opinion, if you would like to pose a question, you're welcome to either unmute yourself or put up your hand. If you go into the Zoom chat, you can see raise hand, and then you can, we will acknowledge you and you can pose a question. Alternatively, you are welcome to pose a question into the group chat, and you can see me pointing over there so that I don't lose my focus and can also see it. And then we will open up the floor for discussion. Do we have any questions or comments? Oh, I see Ambrose wants to say something. Okay. Ambrose, because your mic is also still on, you're welcome to say something.
Okay, Melody. So my question is, I know of BEE, Black Economic Empowerment. We learn a lot of it in business studies. So, like Lucia said, we need to empower women not only in the ordinary, but in business sectors and in executive positions and uplift female-dominated industries as well. So, how do we go forward in that aspect? How is there legislations that can be formed, and what can we do in terms of the business sector to actually uplift the women and create a thing like BEE but just for women?
Okay. Lucia, am I going to unmute you?
Okay.
There we go.
For me, what I can say is women need to organize themselves. We need to start organizing ourselves in small clusters. Especially, we don't have to start organizing ourselves after matric. It's something that we can start within our school-going age, where we start with entrepreneur, where you learn to start selling lollipops, sweets. That's where we start. That's where you empower yourself. You can't wait up until you are done with matric or university, then you start your business. You can actually start a business at a young age. As young as you are, you can start a business. That's where we start. When it comes to BE and legislative, we leave it to the people that works with it, because the only way we can change that is for us knowing our own constitution and also clubbing together as women, coming together and seeing how we can change, legislation and policies that do not favor us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the commissioner or for Lucia? Or do we have any other comments that we would like to pose?
Okay.
Lucia?
Hi. Okay, I have a question to Christina, the commissioner. How can you get your program in provinces, especially in rural schools and how can rural schools and marginalized communities, so that they can be part of it? How can we grow it? How can we assist you in it? Thank you.
Your question. So in order for my office to exist, there needed to be an amendment to the Constitution of the Western Cape. So the Children's Commissioner's Office is created by sections within the Constitution of a province. So first, provinces need to change their constitution. That's not an easy thing to do, right? So what people in my sector, the children's rights sector, are doing is they're saying, Christina, please do good work. Be a good example. Please don't let us down. So that other people may draw courage from your example and say, yes, this is a great idea. Let's change our constitution. Let's make a law for a children's commissioner. I actually have a law that tells me what my job description is. It's Act 2 of 2019 in the Western Cape. My entire job description is an act of law. So it's not a very easy thing. It's a huge responsibility. I am emboldened by my co-workers there on the front line. You can see them. I'm sure that with their support and with their inspiration and their encouragement, I will do well at what I need to do. But in the Western Cape, as soon as lockdown is over, I will travel to the furthest most parts of this province, the most rural, the most marginalized. I've asked for all the informal settlements to be mapped in the province so that I know that I would want to go and talk with those children. I want to talk to the children who are furthest from the seat of power. So those geographically furthest from the seat of power, but also historically, also contextually, just in terms of the realities that they need to face in rural areas, in informal settlements. I don't like this word informal settlements, by the way, but because people settle there for life, how can it be informal? I mean, my studies in my master's degree was around women who lived in Gugulethu and Menenberg in informal structures, but they lived there their entire lives. And so we must start to build a respect for people's homes and the places where they live by giving them recognition. Sorry, that's tangential, but my point is that I will go into the spaces where children feel most furthest from the seat of power. I'm not going to be the commissioner that sits in an office every day, unfortunately. I think that's the role of the CEO of the office. I'm the one who's going to be in the community, going to be advocating, going to be chatting with children, and then taking those messages in their own words, in the children's own words, to decision makers. Bringing those children even into parliament sometimes so that we can be reminded of what lives are like on the edge of society. I'm looking forward to that. So please speak to the president so that we can be free.
I see that there's also a question from Fadila for the commissioner. She says, is there a similar program for primary school learners for the commissioner? I think she's referring to the Friday WhatsApp program that you have with Ambrose.
There is actually a primary school child on that program. There's a 12-year-old girl in grade 7 who was part of that program. She was nominated by RX Radio, which is the only radio station in Africa run by children. She's a child reporter there. She has been since she's been about 9 years old, I think. So she is part of the program. And I always say that she's not always able to join us on Friday nights because maybe she has something in a family way to do. But when I do one-on-one sessions with her, I almost only speak a half a word and then she gets it because of her exposure from the radio station. She understands the whole context of South Africa and the challenges that we have. So I work from the orientation of I build from where you are. So the Child Government Monitors program, I do concentrate on high schoolers because I think that you just have to have different programs for different age groups. So a primary school program, for example, I would probably go and do the same kind of workshops with primary school learners as I've done with the Children's NDP. It is just a matter of being able to access children at this time. You know, I'm not able to build that relationship, those networks in and across the province to include the children that I would like to see there. But the next iteration of the program, we may very well have a mixture of primary and high school learners. There's no problem I have with that.
Thank you so much, Christina. If we have no more comments, any other comments that you would like to pose into the chat? Okay, Lucanio. I see Lucanio's hand over there.
Yes, I actually posed the question posed to Lucia. Lucia, I was asking that in business, most as in marketing and stuff, how is then technology? Is technology based on it? Because with the post industrial revolution, so is the technology implemented and taught to women? Because at this age, usually technology and IT and stuff are male-dominated industries. So, what is your input on how technology and IT and information, ICT, is that being taught? What's your part in doing so? Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, I couldn't hear you clearly, but I'll try and answer your question. Okay, we live in a world where the digital world has become a norm. You cannot stay without having a laptop or a phone or an iPad. Unfortunately, they're marginalized. They don't have that access. A woman that is seated somewhere in Komatiport or somewhere doesn't have training or skilled how to order online, how to sell their products online. I think we still have a long way of teaching our women in marginalized communities when it comes to IT or when it comes to the digital platform. So with that, we have started planning of seeing how we can skill our own young women, how we can skill women within our bodies that we sit in. Thank you. I don't know if you answered.
If I could also just add to that, I think that the fourth industrial revolution is something that everybody keeps on talking about. But I think that we as a people, or we need to think about, what do I need to do? What opportunities exist? And despite the fact that the cost of data, the cost of ICT infrastructure in South Africa is so high compared to the rest of the world, it provides us with an opportunity to become more innovative. Like when you don't have something, the solution that you create based on what you have speaks to your innovation and your ingenuity. And I think that there's an expectation for us. A lot of South Africans and young people are developing apps. They are developing apps that are light on data, simply because data costs so much for us. So as an opportunity, as a business venture, those certainly are channels that one needs to pursue and investigate. And often one needs to ask the question is, what value can I create? What need would this satisfy? Because often also you find that the entrepreneurs or the business developers, they start off with wanting to satisfy a need as opposed to just making money. And I think that that is also how one creates benefit, not just to yourself, but to society as well. Yeah, I also see there is a follow-up question from Fadila to the commissioner, in which she asked, will the commissioner be open to do programs at prison, to do a program at prison with the juveniles?
Thank you for your questions, Fadila. I think that you are a person who is really following my own thought patterns. I want to talk to every child, any child in any circumstance. So I have, for example, connected with the Department of Social Development to advise me of how to connect with children who find themselves in the care and protection of the state. So children in foster care, children in child and youth care centers, children even in secure care centers. These are like awaiting trial children. And, you know, one can say, I can stand here on a platform and say, I will do this and I will do that like a good politician. But I think my track record speaks for itself, because during the Children's NDP project, I'm just going to read the date here. On the 29th of March, 2017, I conducted a workshop in Groot Drakenstein Correctional Facilities to also ask those children and young people what their view of the future of South Africa is, because they are also part of our society, and they can actually give us more insight into what the failures of the system is than those of us who live comfortable lives. It is those who live, like I say, in precarious circumstances, who have been failed by the systems of the state, who have been failed by families, who have been failed by communities, who find themselves in adverse circumstances, maybe in a correctional facility right now. At that time, correctional facilities for juveniles go up until 25. And there was only one child, technically. I work with children, so 0 to under 18. There was only one 15-year-old child, and he spoke very eloquently about a matter that we know of in policy, in international policy, about children being used by adults to commit crime. And so his experience was of being an instrument of gangs to commit crime. And he gave us his views, and we spoke about how things could be different. And I included those views into that report, which went to the president. So you have my commitment. You will see me in all kinds of weird and wonderful spaces with children. I cannot mess up. These guys here on the call, and you as the South African public, are going to hold me to account in my office as well. Faldila, I see you. Thank you so much for all your thoughts, and I will just also put in the chat my email address, the Children's Commissioner's office email address, so that we can continue this relationship. It's very important for me to build allies in society. I really appreciate all your views and inputs. Please, let's continue with this talk. Also, I will place the poems of the poets on my Twitter line today. We will have a little meeting after this, and then we will decide what to post and how to post. And so you will be able to access their poetry on my Twitter feed. So I'll give you both of those contact details in the chat right now. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tina. Fadila, I see your hand up also. Did you want to pose another question? Fadila, I can't hear you. If you just either want to pose your question into the chat. So while Fadila is posing her additional question into the chat, I just want to extend my thanks to our guest speaker, Lucia, our guest speakers plural, Lucia and Christina, as well as to Lucanio, Ambrose, and Chelsea. It was wonderful for you to share your thoughts and your inputs with us and to celebrate Women's Day in this manner. I think that it has been a very fruitful and invigorating discussion, and the opportunity to share perspectives and to already start a new collaboration is very exciting. I'm certainly looking forward to communicating with the Commissioner's office in future. And I also just want to remind you to please put Heritage Day onto your save the date calendars, as the museums are working towards public opening in the future, and as we are planning and getting ready for our Heritage Month celebrations, I would encourage you to continue to visit our website and to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for our program and event updates for the future. I see Fadila is typing there furiously, and we're waiting for Christina to put her email address into the chat on the Zoom. And I am going to, Wandile, do you want to say anything else? I must also recognize, thank you, Christina. That is Christina's email address into the chat. It is childrens.commissioner@wccc.gov.za. And on Twitter, she is at Nomdo Christina. Okay. I was also going to say that when you are going to tweet and when you are sharing on social media platforms, please do use the hashtag I am Generation Equality. And I think that communication from particularly Lucanio, Ambrose, and Chelsea will make that statement ring very true, because you are Generation Equality. It's very exciting to see you here. I also just want to recognize Wandile Kasibe. He is the Public Programs Coordinator for Iziko Museums of South Africa. He is the one who planned and put this program together. And I'm just going to hand over to him for 2 seconds to just say a concluding remark.
Yeah,
While we wait for Fadila's next question.
yeah, thank you very much, Melody, for really, I think, facilitating this very important discussion. I think at the time when we commemorate the bravery of women and also creating a space, you know, for society to reflect really on really very important issues. And I really must express my gratitude to, you know, to all the speakers, you know, and also the questions that have been posed here, very important questions. And because it is very important, I think, for a museum to open spaces such as this for society to reflect, and also to create or rather to move away from the idea that museums are all about, you know, dead things. That's always the impression that is created, that museums are about stuffed animals. And I think that the idea of a museum is evolving, and it has always evolved, that museums can actually become spaces for, you know, conversations and dialogues that are aimed at creating that socially cohesive space, social cohesion, and nation building. And Iziko is you know, doing exactly that. And I'm very grateful that we have been able to have this very important discussion. And as Melody has said, that this Women's Day discussion is part and parcel of a series of programs that we have throughout the year. And the next big program that's coming is in September, which is part of our Inherit Festival. And we will really like people to join us, because we have a very exciting program ahead, and we will put information online, and we do invite all of you to join us, as we will be celebrating our heritage. And I think, Melody, that's all from, you know, from me. And thanks to you really for you know, for being you know, an awesome facilitator. I must say that. Thank you very much. You must unmute yourself. That's it.
Just before we conclude, Fadila has posed a question to me for the commissioner, and my advice to her was that the commissioner has placed her contact details into the chat, and for them to connect directly so that they can continue this conversation offline. Once again, and I also would like to reiterate something that Wandile said that's very close to my heart, and I think it's very important. Museums are not just about stuffed animals. He is very correct. We are a space of engagement and conversation. And I'm very excited to see Lucanio, Ambrose, and Chelsea here, because we are about conversations with everybody. The not so youthful commissioner-aged people who are just on the other side of being young, and the really young people. And we love to hear your voices. We love the conversations. I think my favorite thing in the museum is hearing the school learners come down the ramp at the whale well going, ooh and ah. And so we're really looking forward to having future conversations with you. And we would love for you to continue to follow us, like I said, on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram, and to save the dates for our future engagement and to continue to participate and to collaborate with us. So once again, thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Hashtag I am Generation Equality, and have a wonderful, wonderful Women's Day for the rest of the afternoon. I think it's tea time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Wandile, you're recording, you must.